welcome to this Wednesday, July 20th edition of the Islandstats Sports Show. Joining me as the host, Earl Basin, is co-host Jason Juglin J. Ford and Stacey Babb. We do have to apologize for Gary Moreno, who is unavailable for tonight. But Jay, you got away lucky, but Stacey, we're going to go right to the elephant in the room. Of course, first of all, congratulations on Arsenal making it to the FA Cup final. Overall, what did you think of your team's performance?
It was definitely an improvement over the past two games from the previous. So you see that starting to gel a bit more, get a little bit more comfortable with the definitely coming back from COVID and stuff like that. David Luiz getting a little bit more consistent with his performance, a better performance with the position that is given to play. Overall, just gelling well, and our fourth string, while goalkeeper pretty much is doing a great job filling in for number one and number two. So it's looking well. It's going to be an interesting final. We'll see how it goes.
Juggler, the unfortunate thing is your boys got knocked out.
Actually, it was something I knew that was going to probably happen, not only just the FA Cup game, but with the run of games that we was coming up with, how you're going to rotate your players, what's going to take priority in your team selection. And, prior to, I believe, the last game, we had unchanged team in about 4 or 5 games. And we started to see with the game before this, when you have, guys who haven't played for a while, try to get some miles in their legs. The consistency with the play, different things. Now, the actual game against Chelsea, the 5 changes, not just the 5 changes, but changing the whole setup. And it was very detrimental. Now, in saying that, David De Gea had another, goalkeepers had a bad game here and there, but that was, that was not pretty to see. But in saying that, the last game, the one against Crystal Palace, he pulled off some great saves. So you're going to have games like that. It just looked like the coaching staff mailed it in realistically, and just thought they can get away with a weaker squad. I'm always a bit torn when it comes to team selection like that, especially now where you have an opportunity to have 5 substitutes. I know coaches, for a lot of times, they always preaching to players, take one game at a time. Take the next game in front. We're not looking too far ahead. But then when the coaches or the coaching staff make these type of decisions, you understand where they're making these decisions from. But as a player, I always say once you're winning, the confidence is always up, and you never want to put that doubt of, being beaten. I'm never one to say there's a lot of big lessons learned when you lose. I think losing could probably help build character, but I think winning hides a lot of stuff, and I think our game against West Ham, because if we lose against West Ham. The only other good caveat in all of this over the weekend was Leicester. Leicester going down again, and Leicester's had a bad run since the comeback off this break. So that's the only other caveat for us. And we have them at the last game of the season. So that's going to be interesting. But we're going to have to beat West Ham now.
Stacey, what's your prediction for the Old London Derby final?
That's an interesting one. Probably 3-2 to Arsenal.
Jay, you have any predictions?
That's hard, man, because even Chelsea, they left out the young American boy who has been on fire. I'm pretty sure he will be playing in the final. And hate to say this, David Luiz was the man of the match the other day. How many times have we said that this year? Or the last couple of years. So, I don't know. I like the youngsters as Arsenal does have an attack, But both defenses could be questionable on the day. So I don't know. I'd probably see it going to penalties, actually. I think going extra time with penalties.
Okay. All right. Enough of the overseas football. Let's turn our attention to local events. Obviously, we had a full slate of cricket matches that took place over the weekend. On Saturday down at Lords and St. David's, Cleveland County won by 3 runs over the under-19s. And on Sunday, it was Western Stars defeating Devonshire Recreation Club by 10 wickets. Flex beating Somerset Bridge by 7 wickets. St. George's won by 21 runs over St. David's, and Rangers won by 108 runs against Willicott. Jay, you got a chance to see a bit of the Stars rack game. Give me your thoughts or your opinion.
Ooh, the far cry, what there's 2 clubs quality had many years ago. It's just a far cry from it. Obviously, you see the coaching staff trying to do all they can with the talent that they have, but just really lacking a lot of talent. I mean, you see a lot of guys hard there, especially guys from Devonshire Rec. You see the heart that's there. It's just a lack of talent. I mean, once upon a time, when you looked at Devonshire Rec, you had Pace Edwards, Joe Smith, the Emery brothers. I mean, you can go on and on. Lionel Thomas. I mean, you can name so many guys. It was probably hard to. I mean, I remember Sluggo and even Albert Steve having a hard time breaking into the team. Guys, Donald Norfolk, Cover Place. I mean, just so many guys. And realistically, do you see any national squad players in either one of those teams right now? Not really. So it's going to be interesting to how they use 2020 for growth. And that's what I've always been, a bit leery of when it comes to 2020. Where do you get to actually get these players to a higher level? I saw many simple mistakes, even coaching mistakes. Whereas, for instance, we know as a country, and not even just us, we and the West Indians too, have a hard time with spin. But that game yesterday, I saw Devonshire Rec posted a total and decided to keep their seamers on against Western Stars up until probably the last couple of overs, where they brought some spin on. It actually brought them back a bit, but it led to a 10-wicket defeat. I just see guys just like even on a field like St. David's, Errol, as you know, you can run single after single after single after single. You know what our boys want to do. Not even hit for the boundary. They want to hit for the fences. They want to hit for the water. So be interested. And just, in that game alone, it's going to be interesting. You see the former Cleveland player and coach, Curtis Jackson's around at Western Stars now. It'll be interesting to see how they get the boys around there progressing throughout the season.
Yeah. When we look at how things have been progressing, Stacey, we're 2 weeks into the cricket season. A bit of mixed bag results. Have there been any surprises for you thus far?
In reference to the local cricket?
Yeah.
No surprising results at all, actually. It'd definitely be interesting to see what happens in the next couple of weeks when they get back to being a bit more comfortable with what we have to play under. Yeah. And it becomes a part of the norm for now.
Yeah. When we look at the top scorer for the weekend, Regino Smith playing for Flats with 58, Dion Stubble 56 for Southampton Rangers. And then it was a first division score of Christian Singh for Cleveland County, 50 not out. Brian Hall scored 50 for St. David's. Joshua Gilbert also getting a 50 for Somerset Bridge. A handful of guys getting big scores where everyone else is kind of struggling. So, we look at that and you say, where do we go from here? In the bowling department, obviously, with figures of 4 was one maiden, 4 for 22. Alan Douglas Jr. had the best bowling figures for the weekend. You had McGowan from Cleveland County. He bowled 4 was one maiden, 3 for 15. Rohan Davis from Western Stars, 4 was one maiden, 3 for 19. And then, of course, Malachi Jones and Dion Stubble both had good outings with 3 wickets for 19 and 3 wickets for 20, helping Alan Douglas as well. So Southampton Rangers had, 3 guys take 10 wickets. So for Southampton
That was the
Rangers,
difference in that match, though.
what's that?
You looked at that was the difference in that match yesterday, the Willocots and Southampton Rangers.
Yes.
The bowling for Rangers was far superior than the bowling for Willocots.
Right.
I mean, one of the lead bowlers for Willocots, even though I believe he came on a second change, Kamal Bashir, he ran 4 for I believe 68.
Yeah.
Came to some comments.
It could have been one of those things where they got into that full sense of where they were after beating St. George in that tight game last week to go into a game this weekend full of confidence, but then you have to do the work again. You know what I mean? You have to start all over again, and I think that's where they lost their way.
Also, I believe with Rangers coming back to more of a full squad, remember that first game they played a good bit of youngsters. But when you still have Generic Tucker batting number 7, number 8, and it's still knocking up 20-odd runs.
Right.
It's always definitely nice to see Regino. This is the second week in a row is knocking up some runs. So they have a good unit down there at Flats. Too bad it's no Connie this year.
Don't pump up the tire and then get it deflated.
I'll tell you what the miss was this year. I mean, this week, obviously, we was, and Barry, we could talk about it a little bit, but I think the anticipation of Kamal and some youngsters from Somerset game not being played over the weekend, I think that was, I think a lot of fans really want to see, the write-up. It was a write-up on young Proctor last week. Obviously, he's one of the Bermuda's bright bowling stars. He's pretty decent with the bat, but I don't think he'll be in the island much longer. Mind you, this COVID can probably keep him here, but I don't see him playing in Bermuda much. It's going to be, if he gets a chance, another Delray. I'll give him 1-2 years because he's that type of a talent, and it'll be interesting. He played in the under-19s, I believe, on a Saturday.
Yeah.
But I think the anticipation to see him, and also, I mean, well, Justin Donovan would have been in quarantine, right?
No,
because he had just
would have been in quarantine.
Come on.
Yeah.
All right. So Justin Donovan was supposed to do back, and I believe he's going to probably do in court. Or is he here?
Justin's been here. He's been here for a while.
So it'd be interesting if Reed Jones gets that wicket up and Somerset to fly. Do you see those 3 faces coming through? Doesn't cause some guys some headaches.
Yeah. Well, folks, we'll be back with more Islandstats Sports Show after this message from our sponsor. Welcome back to the Islandstats Sports Show. Now joining us is Martin Wolf, who is the mental strength coach for the Bermuda Football Association. He does a lot of work with all the national academy programs as well as the senior men's and senior ladies teams as well. First of all, Martin, welcome to the Islandstats Sports Show.
Thank you.
Now, we want to jump right into it because one of the things that you do for the program is kind of get into players' psyche a little bit, or get into their head to find out what problems they have that can be resolved in, I guess, in the best way you know how to do, to give them the opportunity to be at their optimum best when it comes time to play. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, it's pretty close.
Yeah. When you look at what, when you were first introduced to the program, or when you first came up with the program with the Bermuda Football Association, what was the general conversation around the table?
I mean, I think that the association had been trying to move in this direction for a while, and the timing just happened to be great for me as I had just finished school and come back on the island. So they were all for it. Obviously, there's a bit of not uncertainty, but the field of sports psychology is still very young. So there are a lot of unknowns, and you have to ride a few waves and get people to buy in. Not to say that they were against it, but just didn't understand what it was in its entirety.
Yeah. What would you consider your early challenges to be when you're looking at how you're dealing with the program?
When I first started,
Yes.
yeah, not knowing if I would ever gain the buy-in, I guess that was a concern of mine. Obviously, everyone's approaching things from a different angle. So what I may see or look for in athletes, coaches aren't necessarily looking for, or at times may not look for. So, I had to learn, obviously, on the job that everyone values different things, and I'm just a piece of a big puzzle. So I just try to do my best to do my part. And we have a saying, stay in your lane. If that's not my lane, I let somebody else handle it. I just do my job.
Yeah. Anyone got any questions for Martin?
Well, Martin, I mean, you mentioned something just now, the unknown, and I think the fear of the unknown for any athlete, whether it's fitness, whether it's getting game time, whether it's being a part of a squad, whether it's beating a more superior opponent. How do you approach, I mean, even you're talking about the new industry you're talking about here, sports psychology. How do you personally approach the fear of the unknown? And then how do you get to the buy-in? Because a lot of players, it's hard to get them to a next level. They don't have confidence in themselves that they can actually reach that level.
The first thing I say to pretty much any athlete or team I work with is control the controllables. So, understanding that whatever the opponent does, you can't really control it. You just have to be in control of yourself and manage what you can do and put your best effort forward. It took a while, so relationships at the base of everything. So I try to spend as much time around teams and athletes as I can, because if they know me on a personal level, then they're going to be more willing to cheer and open up. And that allows me to, understand what they need as an individual and then as a team. But having the experiences over the past, I'd say year and a half, have really helped me to know what they need and prepare them. But the apply piece comes in very handy, because we'll do maybe PowerPoints, not all the time, but then I have games from on the field, or just games. Athletes don't always want to look at a screen. So yeah, it varies from person to person and team to team. Every group has their own dynamics that I have to get used to fairly quickly. Did I answer that for you?
Yeah, good. Our national squad is actually a nice, diverse group there, where we have a crop of amateur players, but also a crop of professional players. Mm-hmm. What are some of the challenges dealing with amateur players and then professional players, because both of them come from different mindsets?
I guess routines and understanding that everybody doesn't have the same routine. So back to the individual piece. This person might have a routine where on game day, this is what I do. And I don't mess with anyone's routines, but then some people say, I don't have a routine, meaning they don't have something they do religiously. But just managing them and getting them to see that, hey, you need to be in this space, an ideal space to compete. And that changes, based on the nature of the game. Obviously we look at sport and some things mean more to us than others. Where from where I sit, it's just another game, and that doesn't take away, something being a big game. It's just another part of the process. I just approach every game as that's what it is. It's a game, and I have a job to do. I'm not concerned about who it is, the process. I'm never concerned with the outcome. So that's what I try to preach to them. Like if we got the process right, then what we're looking for. Just worry about playing the game.
Martin, let me ask you a question. How much of when you were younger doing swimming helped you now to understand some of the challenges that the people you work with on a daily basis, they have?
Yeah, a lot, because I didn't understand much of anything back then in terms of psychologically. I know how I felt as an athlete. So now to be in this position and say, okay, I get it. I don't jump in and say I get it, but it allows me to know exactly where athletes are coming from because you've had that experience. And, I have to be very careful of not attaching my experience to what they're going through. Like, I'll say, yeah, I understand what they're talking about, but it's still their experience. So, yeah.
Any questions, Stacey?
Yeah, Martin, for those that might be interested in becoming a mental strength coach or even a sports psychologist, can you share some of your educational background for those out there?
Yeah, of course. I have an undergraduate degree in physical education, so that's where I started, and I have a master's degree in applied sports psychology. So in this field, you have to get a minimum of a master's degree. So my advice is do not do an undergraduate in sports psychology if you want to work at the higher level. But if you do, just know you're going to have to go and get a master's in it as well. I had to do 400 hours of observation, and that was broken up into different categories. I have to take so many courses. The Association of Applied Sports Psychology, ASP, has a whole list of what you need to do. So yeah, I mean, go for it. Do it because you love it. We need more people here in Bermuda. It would be nice. My thinking is that every team should at least have one. Every sporting body should at least have one of me. There's enough work to go around. But yeah, do it because you love it.
How do you share your time? Because the national program has so many different groups and training at different times and so forth, and you kind of make sure that you're around at some point in time through every training session just to if your expertise are needed. So how do you share that time around?
Well, most days I leave for Purvis and I'm on the field for every session, just about Monday through Thursday. That's it.
Okay. All right. Well, like you said, we do need, or each sporting body should have someone in a capacity of that nature, because athletes nowadays are challenged, and it's probably even harder for an amateur athlete because you're balancing so much more than a professional, because the professional goes to work to do their sport, where the amateur person has work to do, personal life, family life, sporting life, and juggling all of that can become challenging at times. What if somebody was listening to this and was struggling mentally with trying to set it all up and do it and put things in perspective for them as an athlete, what would you say to them?
Are we talking to the amateur athlete, correct?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, self-care is huge. You know, you want to start there and managing yourself first. Take some time aside for yourself and then set a schedule to make sure that it's balanced and nothing goes, without any attention. It's really just about managing. Some things you're going to have to say no to. It's a commitment. You have to say, what do I really want at the end of the day? You know, start there and kind of work backwards. But it can be done. There are a lot of people here. There are some coaches that do it very well that I've seen, and hats off to them. You know, manage multiple young children and come to football and other sports, and you think, man, where's your family time? But they definitely get it in. Maurice Lowe is probably the best I've seen with that, managing his time and then giving himself to football. So, but again, at the end of the day, it's what you want. It goes back to mindset and committing to the process.
Well, Martin Wolf, I want to thank you for your time here on the Islandstats Sports Show, sharing your message, and hopefully more people do follow in your footsteps, because I believe it's a very important job that you do, and you're going to need some help very soon.
Definitely.
All right. Well, folks, we'll be back with more Islandstats Sports Show after this message from our sponsors. Well, now comes the time where we join our Caribbean reporters. And of course, on Monday, we all know the West Indies could not hold back or hold off England as the series is tied up at 1-1. Let's join Vernon A. Springer and then Anne-Marie Burke. Well, Mr. Springer, obviously the West Indies could not hold out, and now it's all coming down to a final test. Can you give us your thoughts on the match, and also what else is going on throughout the Caribbean?
Good day, Earl Basden. This is Vernon Springer from Vast Sports Media in St. John's, Antigua and Barbuda. Well, as expected, the Wisdom Trophy holders are the West Indies, but we were rumbled over by England on the 4th and 5th day's play. In the end, England winning the test match by 113 runs. The man standing between the West Indies losing and winning was Ben Stokes, and they have to find a plan in terms of how they are going to be able to bowl to Ben Stokes, and we seem really not to have had a plan. The West Indies would have played, out of the 10 days of test cricket so far, the last 2 days would have been their worst so far after a clinical finish in the first test. We didn't catch, we didn't bat, we didn't bowl. And there are 3 facets to cricket. If you don't play those well, then you're going to be in trouble. We were out-batted because Ben Stokes and Don Sibley both scored hundreds, helping England to score 469 for 9 declared. And then West Indies, who were in a commanding position, were just exposed literally by the England bowling. And to me, very, very, very ordinary bowling. and bowling to the point where I just thought that the West Indian batsman just got trapped on their crease rather than using the depth of their crease by getting on their toes and playing the short ball. We seem not to be able to handle the short ball on our body, and the reason why that is happening is because most of the West Indian batsmen, starting from Brathwaite to Hope to Chase, are just taking their guards and not getting back and across and looking to be able to play the short delivery. Even Darwish seems to be out of sorts. And when you look at the way in which Blackwood got out in the second innings of this test match, the awareness and game awareness of some of the West Indian batsmen leave a lot to be desired. The fielding of Campbell and company not showing good signs at all. So going into the next test match, I know some folks going to feel that I am very radical, but this is my 11 going into the next test match. Joshua De Silva, Craig Brathwaite, Nkrumah Bonner, Shamar Brooks, Roston Chase, Jermaine Blackwood, Jason Holder, Shane Darwish, Rakeem Cornwall, Raymond Reefer, and Kemar Roach. That's my 11 going into the next test match. So we want to wish the entire West Indies team all the best. Coach Phil Simmons and the players have a responsibility. They have to get up. No coach can help you to counteract and work on your technique. You got to go into your mirror in your room and you got to put in that work. You got to put in those drills, and hey, you got to be able to take it to another level. So it's all to play for in the final third test. In terms of cricket happening around the Caribbean, there's a T10 tournament starting in Tobago. You also know that the World Cup has been postponed, so now that leaves an avenue open now for the IPL, which will be taking place in the UAE. Date to be set. CPL is all set for Trinidad and Tobago, except that a number of overseas players, because of the measures that were implemented by the Trinidad and Tobago government, thought that it was ridiculous to come to the Caribbean Premier League and quarantine for 4 days. They thought they were going to be out of sorts. That is still up in the air in terms of the quarantine procedure. So in terms of anything else happening in sports, yes, the Antigua and Barbuda Drag Racing Association in Antigua, they had a tuning and testing on Sunday at the North Sound Raceway track. So a little bit of sport is back in Antigua, and that's a sport which has been dominant. They have like about 155 members. So it gave them an opportunity to be able to, test out their cars, and they will be, entertaining and getting themselves organized in the next 2 weeks from now. But that in itself was a huge success. In terms of team sport, Anguilla, they completed the football league. There are meetings taking place in Antigua and Barbuda. First, they had a Premier Division meeting and they gave the clubs 4 options. They're meeting with the first and second division clubs over the weekend. To be honest with you, don't see team sport really coming back very quickly, especially football in Antigua and Barbuda, because the health services already have been tested. There's a proposed cool and smooth, which is expected to take place in October. When I get more details, I'll let you know in terms of what's going on. But the day has not been a good one for us in the West Indies. England trashing us by 113 runs. But trust me, we're not out of this as yet. And we're going to shock the English in the third test. Vernon Springer for Earl Basden Island Sports, from Vast Sports Media in St. John's, Antigua and Barbuda.
Hi, Ann. Hopefully all is well with you. Just looking for an update regarding Barbados sports.
Hi, Earl, and I say hello from a very active sporting Barbados. We are in full swing in terms of sports here across the island. Many of the sports have started back their league competitions and their various inter-club competitions. So we're having sports in earnest again. I will weigh in on that, but let me first focus on the West Indies. Of course, that's the big topic across the region. And the question is, where did the Windies falter in this second test? Of course, the West Indies really would have wanted to win this test, because winning it meant that they would have retained the Wisden Trophy. But now we have a situation where all is leveled, and the third test, which starts on Friday, is crucial for either side to win to retain the trophy. Now, where did the West Indies go wrong? I can't particularly say. What I can tell you you is that if you were to look at the first innings that England had, they would have started pretty weak. The West Indies made some early inroads into the English batting lineup, and you would have realized that they had them like 29 for 2, and then a third wicket fell, before lunch. Ross and Chase taking one either side of the lunch break. But then they allowed Ben Stokes and Dom Sibley to sit down at the crease and really stabilize the English innings, and both going on to make centuries. And therefore, I think that's where everything went downhill for the West Indies. 469 for 9 declared was a very tall task for a Windies batting who in the first test really didn't show that they did have that depth anyhow. And then to post 287 in their first innings, they were definitely still behind the back foot. And then the English came again and declared at 129 for 3, and the West Indies could only make 198. You would consider, yes, that they would have lost the third day's play because there was rain, but even then there was the push to make it a draw, but that didn't materialize. So I think the West Indies now have to look at where their strengths are, where their weaknesses are, and they need to really pull out their socks, because this third test is crucial to see who really is on top. And the West Indies would have done it in the Caribbean 2 years ago. Let's hope that they can do it now. So I'm not gonna knock the regional boys for not trying really hard. It is cricket, anything happens in the game, but they have to make sure that when they go into the third and final test starting on Friday, that they are ready to really put it out there as they did in the first test and bring home that trophy to the region. I must also weigh in on the Jofra Archer issue, where Jofra was basically sidelined from the English team because he broke the protocol rules. I think this now will be quite interesting how England handles this situation going into the third test. Will they recall Jofra? Will they not? I mean, is this the end of Jofra Archer and England? A lot of persons are saying, wow, this was the little straw that England needed to say, well, Jofra, we don't need you. I mean, that's the pundits. That's what the pundits are saying. My take on it is I'm still trying to understand why such an amateur decision was taken on his part to go home, knowing the rules and regulations that would have existed from the beginning of the tour, knowing the liabilities that come behind it. I don't quite understand why he would have taken such a decision to stop home, as he said, for 1 hour, break all the rules in terms of being in a biosecure environment, then to stop at the gas station and put gas in the car, then to come back to Old Trafford. I am a little lost as to that decision. I want to say I put it down to youthfulness, a youthful thinking, and the thing that he came back and said, I didn't high five anybody, I didn't come in contact with anybody. But yeah, you did. We don't know, we can't say, but you did know the rules. So he was left in isolation throughout the entire second test. We'll see if England is going to recall him for the third test. This will be very interesting. I'm monitoring that particular situation. Now, coming back home to Barbados, yes, we have a ton of sports going on. Local cricket season is in full swing. This past weekend, you could pass any cricket ground and the crowds were out to support the teams. Everybody was there supporting. And, sometimes I was missing the social distancing, but I was hoping that it was families that would have been congregated to watch cricket together. But I mean, Barbados is having their share of sports. In terms of the volleyball season, the first round of the volleyball league was completed over the weekend as well. So volleyball has really taken the steps to restart their programs. And the big news though is motorsport here on the island. Now the June rally, which is Sol Rally Barbados, that big event was set for the last week of June, and it is the biggest motorsport event in the Western Hemisphere. Well, there are new dates that have been set, and the Barbados Rally Club is going forward with October 31st to November 1st for Sol Rally Barbados, and the preceding King of the Hill motorsport event from October 25th. Now, we're seeing a new calendar being rolled out by the Barbados Rally Club. The calendar actually starts on August 23rd and runs to November 22nd with a number of of all stage road events and the motorsport fans. And if you were to follow motorsport in Barbados, you realize that it is the biggest spectator sport here on the island. When motorsport is happening in the thousands, the persons are out to support the drivers and their navigators and teams. So everybody's looking forward to that new motorsport calendar. So basically that's it for us here in Barbados. Sports is up and running. The National Sports Council, they're into the communities doing their Be Fit program across the island on weekdays, twice a week in the southern side of the island and then in the northern side of the island on another 2 days. And persons have been using that free opportunity to get out, get fit, get moving, learn a sport. I saw some guys playing football, saw some ladies with netball, some little ones running around, cones, etc. So the island is slowly getting back to that sporting normalcy that we're accustomed to. So we're embracing the fact that we are free-ish, I should say, to be involved in sport again. So good to hear from you again for another week, and I look forward to hearing you again next week.
Welcome back. Well, as they put it mildly, the West Indies and England are now deadlocked at 1-1 after Monday's result that saw England win by some 100 odd runs. And realistically, the match was over in 4 days because the Saturday was washed out. Was it Saturday or Friday?
One of them, but it was washed.
Yeah, one of the days was completely washed out. And basically they lost in 4 days. So work to do for the West Indies, obviously. Stacey, we'll start with you. Looking at the result after the first game and then this game that ended on Monday, how do you think West Indies need to shape up for the last test if they want to try and save and hold on to this trophy?
Pretty much the same preparation and energy that came into the first test. They need to get back to that model mid. Also, possibly suffering from a little bit of mental fatigue definitely resulted in the outcome in the second test. If they're able to recover from that, try not to dwell too much on the negatives of what occurred in the second test, but being able to assess and correct what they need to do to come out with the win in the third test is very important. So we'll see what happens when it comes to the next test.
Jay, if you were in the England camp, what's your thought process? Because you still have guys that you could bring in, or do you stay with what won you the game that leveled the series? What do you do?
Well, it's amazing you said that because Gary and myself we was clamoring for Stuart Broad to be in that side, but I don't know if Gary was clamoring for somebody to be in England side. But you can see the difference with him in the squad, and even the youngster Sam Curran, just having the extra option. Didn't take too many wickets throughout the game, but when he did take a wicket, it was very important. It's very vital. Bit upsetting to see what happened with Jeffrey Archer. Disobeying the protocols, got fined for it, so he's apologetic to it. So to see what's going to happen with him in the next test. It's going to be interesting what England does with the wicket, because even that wicket at Manchester really didn't give the bowlers too much assistance. It was a pretty flat track. You see England knocking up 400 and I believe 60 odd runs for 90, declared. It was pretty a flat track. And then you saw on the last day when England went to bed, instead of them sending out their regular openers, they send out Josh Butler and Ben Stokes. And I swear from the first ball, Ben was starting to walk down towards the bowlers. And Earl, you think you're fast, but if a batsman's walking to you to hit you and hitting you hard, that sort of takes a lot of sting out of your ball. And when you're watching him hit Gabriel for 6 over long off, Roach for 6, big sixes, it looked like it just took the sting right out of the West Indies team. So it's going to be interesting to see if they could bring in the spinner, Cornwall, I believe his name is. It's going to be interesting to see if they make a couple of other little changes here and there. I believe even the field, a couple of drop catches, you can see the guys' heads go down. I agree with Stacey. They have to get the energy right. England, how do they solve Ben Stokes? Because Ben Stokes was able to show you what his whole showcase is as one of the, I'm going to say one of the better players in the world right now in all formats of the game. He was able to show you in the first innings how he could bat long and bat good, and then the second innings how he can attack you. Now, mind you, the drop catches, when you drop a man of that caliber, you're going to get punished. So West Indies have the work cut out for him for their last test. Wish him all the best, but it's going to be interesting to see what changes Coach Simmons makes.
One thing in the first test, Ben Stokes was captain of the team, and this time around a little bit more free to do what he does naturally, and I think that actually helped him using the concentration he had to use in the first game to now be allowed to play that second game with a little more freer. Basically, would have helped him a lot.
And I agree with you because you can see the difference. It was playing his day when Joe Root is captain, but you can see Joe Root built for this. Like, he doesn't get too up, he doesn't get too down. Like, he's just very, very stable. When he bats, he bats the same way. You can see him, cheering the boys on or what he gets out of the players. So I just think for them, it's just getting the right, well, for any team, just getting the right selection and hoping your boys come through. Butler, we mentioned about him with the gloves, the first test. I believe he had a better test behind the wickets. But with the bat, it's going to be interesting. So does James Anderson come back in? Are they going to bring Archer back in? So if they're going to bring him back in, who's going to drop? Chris Wilkes picked up 2 wickets in the last inning. So, who do you drop? So it's going to be interesting what West Indies do as far as for this last test.
Yeah. Now back onto the local front. Obviously, over the weekend, Caden Hopkins won yet another time trial, putting up the decent numbers. Connor White is finding his way back into a little bit of form. He finished in second. Youngsters, Alexander Miller and Narroway, these guys are up and coming. So the sport is going to grow and grow really, really fast. So we look forward to the next race, which will be another time trial. I don't think they've been given permission to have road races, as road racing, as you know, is a very close event. Where time trial, it's single individual, and if you do pass someone, you're just passing them right away, and then you're moving on. But when it comes to road racing, it's a little more challenging because kind of ride in packs. Stacey, you've actually watched a lot of cycling over the years. What would you consider more challenging? And I see you laughing, smiling there. What would you say would be more challenging, a time trial or a road race?
What challenging is definitely the time trial, based off the fact that you don't have anybody to feed off of, and taking those breaks that you normally would in a road race, or using your opponents as pretty much to the benefit of your own riding, where you get those breaks to recover. Time trial, it's not that situation. It's you out there with your thoughts, and that's simply that. Road race, as you know, you have the opportunity to communicate with your teammates and strategize of how to approach the actual route that you're on. Time trial, of course, you have your pre-race talk, but when you're out there, it's just you and your thoughts, and that's pretty much it.
We'll quickly switch because also finishing over the weekend was the Manders Tennis Management Doubles Tournament at the Fairmont Southampton Tennis Courts, and Gavin Manders and Trey Mallory defeated Sam Butler and James Finnegan in the final, and that was a 3-set battle, one that I know both groups of teams wanted to actually win, but it was tougher for Sam and James only because they had to play a semifinal earlier in the morning, and it was quite hot for them to be out there and then an hour or 2 hours later to go and take on Trey and Gavin. Jay, you've been keeping up with tennis for a little bit, but just these guys, the fact that they're able to battle at this high level, it must bode well for the sport of tennis right now.
It takes me back to the conversation you had with Gavin Manders a few months ago. Just finding a way to put on tournaments to keep the competition. Once sometimes you say you build it, they're going to come. Once you start getting good competition, you can get guys come out, and once they get themselves in some type of shape, everybody's going to feel like they can win something. And that's the great thing about sports. Before you start, it's 0-0 or 0-0 or 0-0. So everybody thinks they have a chance until that first punch in the face, maybe, but that's the great thing about tennis is that this past tournament, even though it was a doubles tournament, you saw some names out there, and it'd be interesting now to see how many tournaments they can actually squeeze in during these restrictions, and that even though this is a doubles, when's going to be a nice men's championships is going to come up, or something that these players can look forward to. I think right now to say they're going to have a tournament in 2-3 months is sort of hard based off of what conditions were in at the moment. But these players, it was warm, as we will say here over the weekend. And I mean, you took some film work, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. But hey, that's tennis. They don't play in the rain, so you got to go outside and play.
Yeah. Well, and you saying that this coming weekend they're playing a Davis Cup style cup match, where they're going to have the top 8 players in the island. They're going to be split up into 2 teams, one St. George, one Somerset. The only messed up part is you might end up playing for Somerset. It's the way the draw goes, or the way you're selected, because how they're doing it, the number 1 player can flip a coin. Well, they have to flip a coin first. And if it's, well, let's put it like this. Heads is Somerset, tails is St. George. So whatever comes out, that person's on that, right? And then they flip a coin again. The number 1 player flips the coin a second time. The number 1 player can choose the next pick or defer it to pick second, and then he gets 2 picks. So that's the way they're doing that. So the first thing you need to do is hope you're on the right team.
Somerset,
well, no. You're sandwiched between 2 St. Georges, so take it easy.
Well, your first lose and your second lose. I mean, I have the cup. I mean, just only one winner.
Well, that's true. That's true. That's true. It's going to be St. George. Well,
Okay.
before we go tonight, we do have some breaking news that the Edward Cross long distance race will take place
Nice.
on the first day of Cup match. So next
Oh.
week, Thursday, the Edward
Okay.
Cross long distance race will leave St. George at 11 o'clock and end off of the West End Sailboat Club. So that's one event that was initially canceled, but due to the relaxation of the COVID restrictions, the sailors really wanted to keep a tradition going, and they've found a date, and they've chosen the Thursday, which would have been the first day of Cup match, to hold the
Perfect.
Edward Cross long distance race. So for all those people that love to be on the water when they come into, here's your opportunity. So yeah, all right. Well,
Nice.
folks, I do want to thank you very much for joining us for another edition of the Islandstats Sports Show. Do enjoy the rest of your night.